Charging for use of the entire road network is being considered by Transport Infrastructure Ireland. If approved, this would involve the use of, or the removal, I should say, of all existing road tolls, and would see all motorists charged for using roads throughout the national road network. So is this a savvy, climate-friendly initiative, or just another tax on the road user? To discuss this, we're joined by independent TD Michael Healy and environmental journalist and commentator John Gibbons. Michael Healy, your view?
Well, I'd be totally opposed to this because I believe that at present our motorists, they're haunted, persecuted and pursued at every avenue. I'll remind people this morning that when they buy 10 euros worth of petrol or diesel, there's over 7 euros going on tax and excise duties. When they're paying their tax to go to work, many of them are paying over 50% tax. They're paying road tax. They're being taxed again and again and again, and I think this is wrong. I'm very disappointed with Transport Infrastructure Ireland to even be suggesting this, because once they start suggesting it and mooting it and putting it out there, of course there will be people like environmentalist gurus who will say, yes, this is a great way to try and stop people of driving. You must remember, this would be an anti-rural measure because people living in rural areas don't have the same type of public access to transport as others.
Okay.
So I think it's wrong, fundamentally wrong, and the people going to work today surely couldn't agree with it.
Let's bring in one of those environmental gurus. John Gibbons, your take.
Good morning, Shane. Yeah, well, first off, we've spent about 30 billion euros of taxpayers' money developing our motorway network. We spend hundreds of millions a year maintaining that network, and that's fair enough. It obviously has its uses, but we're completely out of step with Europe. And let me give you an example. A motorway, say the Dublin to Waterford motorway, you can drive from Dublin to Waterford and back on an underused motorway with zero tolls from one end to the other. Now, if you took the equivalent journey, Shane, in Europe, typically in Europe, say in France, you're paying an average of €7 per 100 kilometres. So, for example, Dublin to Cork, the equivalent of that in France, in tolls would cost you €20 each way. Now, the point of that isn't to haunt and persecute the motorist. It is to make a contribution from the person who's benefiting from this incredibly expensive infrastructure, that they make a contribution towards the maintenance of the infrastructure. And it is important to say, and I know Michael's concerned about taxpayers, and so am I, it's important to say that in Ireland, fewer than 1 in 2 people own a car of any description. That means the person on the 46A or the person down in Cork on the bus, for example, they're out of their tax. They're paying for a national motorway network that only benefits the motorists.
Let Michael Healy come back on that.
Unfortunately, he lost the argument when he started off by saying, we spend so many millions or billions. We spend nothing. There is no money in this country, only the money that the hard-pressed workers in this country put into the economy. So for anybody to start off an argument by saying we spend, it is not we, it is not our money. The government has no money. It is the government.
I think that's what he meant.
Right.
I think that's what he meant, Michael.
No, he lost the argument when he started off that way, because the people are paying enough. And I know for a fact, people that are going to work today won't appreciate this, because they will simply feel we're paying enough, things are expensive enough, and this is not a practical or sensible time to be talking about introducing more additional taxes.
Okay, John Gibbons?
Yeah, Shane, well, first of all, I think we'll let the listeners decide who won or who loses the argument, rather than having Michael make that call on air. Another point about this, of course, that where people are currently being fleeced is in these private companies, the PPPs, the public-private partnership companies, who are basically holding us hostage. To give you an example, the Westlink bridge, there's a private company owns that and is extracting huge amounts of revenue from it. Now, we, the taxpayer, built the M50. We, the taxpayer, maintain the M50 at enormous cost. But the only people making money from the M50 is a private operator.
Okay,
that is absolutely ridiculous.
Okay, Michael Healy, at that point though, you can drive all the way to Waterford and pay zero tolls, and yet you can be hammered on the M50 if you drive for 2 kilometres. That surely isn't fair.
Well, a solution to that certainly is not introducing a new tax on all national roads. In other words, If it's wrong for people to be paying a certain amount on certain roads, surely it's going to be doubly wrong and more wrong to go charging them to travel every road.
And how do we repay? How do we when we move to electric cars and all the revenue from petrol taxation goes? How do we replace that?
The answer to that, quite simply, is going to be devised over time. I have always said that, yes, of course, we will have to make changes environmentally over time. What I see wrong with the present plans is we're making changes that are making no sense because the thoughts aren't being fully thought through. It's no more than, does it make sense today to close down our peat producing stations?
All right, we're not getting into that now. We're not getting into that now. I know, Michael, we don't have time to start. Michael, we're not getting into that. We're not getting into that. John Gibbons, very brief final word to you.
Yep, I think there's a basic principle, Shane, that I outlined at the start of this conversation. The people who benefit from the motorway network should make a contribution towards the maintenance of that network. That's common sense, and I appreciate that's not something that Michael trades in, but I think most people listening to us will understand that basic principle.
Okay, independent TD Michael Healy, environmental journalist and commentator John Gibbons, thank you for talking to Newstalk Breakfast.